Okay, we're live. Hello. Hello, everyone. I am Nick Mandig. I am a cartoonist, and this is the live event for the release of my new book, Harvey Knight's Odyssey. I'm very excited about this book. I'm very happy with the book. It turned out really well and getting lots of great feedback. So it's very exciting. I'm going to talk about the book, but first let me take you on a brief tour of my previous books. Um, so I started making mini comics in my teens, and this may not surprise you to learn that I have disowned all of my very early work and will not be reprinting it. That's a familiar story. The first my breakthrough, if you want to call it that, was a book called Streakers. This was originally a self-published mini in 2010. And I got a Xeric grant for it. So I was able to republish it as with a professional printing, as you can see. Some of you may remember the Xeric grant. It was a self-publishing grant started by the creators of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So I got a Xeric for that, and that was also the book that started getting me a bit more attention. It was also the first book after I made the decision that I was going to be a humor cartoonist. I had been doing some of my early minis were more serious in nature and inspired by some more serious cartoonists. I was influenced by like Chester Brown and Dan Clowes and Seth and Chris Ware, to name a few. But at some point I just realized that comedy was more my wheelhouse, and it's what I really loved and what I was best at and what came most naturally to me. And I haven't looked back since. I've been focused on comedy since then with pretty decent results. I think started getting more attention once I focused on humorous stories. So, and then this slicker version was published in 2011. And this was the first of a series of what you could call slim graphic novels or graphic novelettes that I made, with a thin spine, about 50 pages in length. This was the first one. And then I did two more with the late Alvin Buenaventura, Pigeon Press. We did a couple books together. Did The Libertarian. Oh, I should tell you what Streakers was about. Streakers was a story of three friends who are connoisseurs of streaking, and it's an art form for them. And they start a streaking appreciation society, of which they're the only members. That's the premise of that book. So then next is The Libertarian, Pigeon Press book I did with Alvin. That is story of a libertarian who pretends to be a socialist in order to win over a woman. And then we did a book called Facility Integrity. This is another very popular book of mine. Streakers, they're all pretty popular. Streakers is very popular, and this book is also another pretty popular one. This was 2014. That was an office comedy about a company that decides to start regulating its employees' bathroom habits in order to increase efficiency. In 2015, I did a fat mini comic called The Oath, which was self-published because Alvin wasn't crazy about this one. Originally, I had intended this to be another Pigeon Press book. But it was, in hindsight, I can see where he was coming from. I do think the story was maybe a bit of a misfire compared to the previous stories. Although I do stand by the comedy of this book. I do like the jokes. So yeah, this was The Oath. And then I did my first full-length book, graphic novel, in 2019. This was my first book with Drawn and Quarterly, The Follies of Richard Wadsworth, and it's a collection of 3 short stories. The first story, The Follies of Richard Wadsworth, is a story about a philosophy professor who's not all that bright. And second story in the collection is Night School. This story was me experimenting with a more surreal type of humor and storytelling. And I think it was successful. I am happy with it. It's just a story of one night in the life of a night school class, and just like crazy, bizarre stuff happens. And the last story in the collection is The Disciple. That is what's that about? Story of a young man who goes to live in a Buddhist monastery, but the problem is that it's a co-ed monastery, and he has some trouble sticking to his vow of celibacy. And now we have the big moment that you've all been waiting to hear about. Harvey Knight's Odyssey, available today at fine bookstores across the continent. And I believe maybe in Britain as well. I don't know if that's the case. At least in North America, this is available in fine bookstores. And I don't know. I'm like I said, I'm very happy with the book. It's another collection of 3 stories. I was very happy with the front and back covers for this book. I feel like its covers are a little more interesting and funny than maybe some of my previous covers. I like the colors. Coloring is a struggle for me. I've always been just a black and white cartoonist, and I've colored as little as possible. I can count on 2 hands the number of coloring jobs I've had to do. So I came up with some colors that I thought were good, but Tom Devlin, the senior editor of this book, managed to come up with a color scheme that was much better, so we went with that. And the funny thing is, I was at a dinner with Tom not too long ago, and he mentioned just in passing that he's colorblind. So my coloring jobs are being improved by a colorblind guy. So that's great. On the inside front and back covers, I've got a selection of sort of a best of selection of Instagram strips. Many of you watching this may follow me on Instagram. But if you don't, check me out. I do post strips from time to time. Now let's go through the stories of the book. As I said, it's a collection of 3 short stories. First story of the book is The Plunge. This is my autobio debut. I never really intended to be an autobio cartoonist. I had made the decision, years ago that there had been so much good autobio that came before me that I was going to focus on fiction. I was going to be a fictional cartoonist. And normally when I'm working on a book, I'm plotting out the next book. So when I'm drawing the book, I'm working out the ideas, the stories of what the next book will be, so that by the time I finish what I'm working on, the next book, I'm ready to start writing the script for the next book. And I had the story all plotted out for what would be the first story in this book. But then I just realized it wasn't working, and I just had to abandon the story. And so for the first time in a long time, okay, we're going to take a pause for a second, I see. Okay. All right. I'm told that the Instagram live feed is not working at the moment, so we're taking a pause if anyone's watching this on YouTube and it is working.